Okay. Welcome to this show has no name, but I want to say hello to Jamie Newell.
Hi, what's going on, Jonathan?
Well, I'll tell you, before we get into your very compelling story, I should say stories, and talk a little bit about who you are and how we met and what's been going on with you. I need to choose a hat for today's broadcast, and I was wondering if
if you have any extra hats, my address is. No, I'm just kidding.
I got a few different hats. I mean, I try to thin out my collection from time to time. So I got 5 different hats that I'm going to try on, and then I'm going to let you choose the one.
Okay.
And by the way, if you're watching this, would you please just comment, because this is the first time I've actually gone live on YouTube, and I want to see if we get your comment. And
wow, I feel privileged.
I know, dude, you're the first one. So I mean, we've done stuff on YouTube before, but we've never done like live on YouTube. Like where we actually are doing it. I don't know. I mean, I've done live radio. You've done live radio, but So comment, please, and let us know. Does the sound good? Can you see the picture? Whatever. All right. Number 1, tried and true. Okay.
Okay.
It's the classic Cubs with the gold surroundings. Got the Is that the World Series?
No. There it is. There's the trophy.
2016. That's offering number 1.
Okay.
Offering number 2, Ottawa Pirates.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, I know you're a Marquette guy, so
I went to Marquette. That is correct.
Okay. Well, you've worked with Ottawa, Illinois Pirates games, I know. So
yes, I've done both.
Number 3, Fighting Illini.
I'm digging the Illini lately. The recruiting class by Brad Underwood has been outstanding, and
yes,
I'm going to say there's a couple. I can't mention what it is, but there might be a couple of surprises coming. I'll just say that.
All right. So Millennium Chef is checking in, and he says so far he's up with the Cubs hat. All right. Hat. It turns out I actually have 6 hats, Jamie.
Oh, 6. Okay.
Hat number 4 is Hope.
I like that.
So, the radio station.
Faith, Hope, and Love. Yeah.
Faith, Hope, family, or sharing hope in Jesus. So that's always a good one. Number 5, Rural King.
Okay.
Do you go to the Rural King?
I've been to. There's one in Peru and there's one in Plano. I've been to the one in Peru a couple of times.
Very good. So, and for those that may not know our geography here, so Jamie lives in the community of which town? Streeter, Illinois.
Big bustling town of Streeter, where they roll up the streets at 9:00 at night.
Yes, sir. And I am in Champaign, Illinois, which is East Central, so a couple hours south of Chicago. And finally, FBI, firm believer in Jesus.
I like that. I like that one too. So, you know what? I think I'm going to go with that. As much as I love the Cubs and I love the Hope one, that's the one that I'm digging right now.
You going with the FBI, huh?
Yeah, and like I said, if you have an extra one, I'll text you my address.
That sounds good. You're not going to post it on the YouTube comments?
No, I'll just text it to you.
Very good. Well, and I like this one because this was a hat I bought for my dad not too long before he passed away, and he liked to wear this at different places, and so I like to hang on to this. All right. So we're past the hat phase. So again, this is our first live YouTube thing. We're just giving it a shot and seeing what's going on. Jamie and I have been at least acquaintances and later friends, probably going back to the late 90s. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right, yeah.
You had trained me at radio station WCMY WRKX.
And you got a job anyway.
Yeah.
So apparently I didn't teach you everything I know, because you still got I always say that when you mention that, just for the fact that you still were able to get a job.
Exactly
right. And still have one after all this time. So
for better or for worse, that's kind of the way it's gone. So but I specifically remember, he gave me one of my earliest lessons in branding, because I remember, I don't know if you remember the specific instance that I will often share, but basically it's so it's like my first day. You're training me how to read the weather on the air, and it's not hard to read the weather. Partly cloudy, high of 70 today. Tonight, low about 48 with a few clouds. Tomorrow it might rain, might not, who knows. But I had been listening to another competing radio station, and I accidentally used their positioning statement, like your station for continuous favorites or something like that.
Yeah.
And I read that.
Which oddly enough, I think anyone that has been or was in radio has done that at some time, because I had done that as well. At some point, I left WCMY, went to another radio station, and was doing my first newscast at like 6 o'clock in the morning. Got through, everything was okay. We had an Ottawa football game that night, so of course I said, listen to Ottawa Pirate football on.
Oh boy,
14:30 a.m. WCMY, and I was at the other radio station. Of course, my boss happened to be there that day.
Oh, of course.
It was early. It was early in the morning. One of those. Why would the boss be at a radio station at 6 o'clock in the morning?
Seriously, bosses need to sleep in.
Yeah. So that's that. Yeah. So I think everybody that has been in radio or is currently in radio has done that at some point.
No doubt. But I mean, so that was my first lesson in the weather. And you said, no, what you stopped me and you said, now you're gonna have to do that again, because I don't think that's us. I don't think that's our positioning. We move forward, and there I had my lesson. Right. But so yeah, I was in my teenage years and kind of just getting started, and you trained me on that and a number of other things, and then whatever happened. But so then I believe I would say probably we lost touch. And then Facebook comes into play a decade later, or whatever it was, and probably not that long. And then I get a message from you, and I kind of even remember where I was at the time when I got the message, and it said, "Hey, because you'd friend people, but then you'd never really necessarily talk to them. Like, oh yeah, I'm your friend on Facebook, whatever." And you said, "Jonathan, I just wanted to let you know," and I don't want to put exact words into your mouth, but you said something like, "I just wanted to let you know that I became a Christian."
Yep.
You said, I forget if you said surrendered my life to Jesus, accept
something
Jesus.
Like that, yeah.
Something like that. And I just wanted to let you know. And I think you maybe even began to share about a few different, Christian music artists that were really speaking to you at the time. But it wasn't like, hey, what's going on? Oh yeah, I started going to church. It wasn't like that. It was like, I dedicated my life to Jesus or something like that.
Right.
And I remember the moment that you told me that, because we'd never had any, to my knowledge, faith discussions prior to that.
No, we hadn't.
In our work career or whatever. But I'm curious, what was it that happened that led to that message?
Well, a lot of it was, and I think I might have shared it when I was down at the radio station a couple of years ago. I went through a time in my life where my wife at the time, now late wife Valerie, was going through a lot of health challenges. And it was something that we really couldn't figure out what it was. And, going to a Catholic high school, I knew you could have a relationship with God, but I didn't know what that looked like. And a guy that I knew that I worked with, he asked me, because I'm telling him, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. And he just looked at me and says, "Are you going to church?" And I said, "I've tried some different churches and just couldn't find the right one." And he says, "Look for a non-denominational church." And this is the truth. That night I went on Google and I typed, because I was living in Naperville, non-denominational churches in Naperville. 2 came up. One was, I don't remember the name of it, but then the second one was Harvest Bible Chapel.
Okay.
Which I remember seeing because it's off of Route 88. It's now called High Point. I remember going to Chicago on 88, and it looked like an office building, because that's what it looked like, with a big cross on it.
Yep.
So I started going there, and I had been going to service probably like a month or so, and introduced myself to the lead pastor there, who's still there, Ron Zappia, and told him what was going on. And he said, "Have you surrendered your life to Christ?" And I said no. And we went through, Romans 10:10. If you believe that Jesus is Lord and died on the cross for you, then you are saved. Something like that. And that's really, he prayed for me, and that's really how I became a Christian.
Wow. Now and shortly thereafter, at some point, you decided to send me a message on what today is Messenger. Back then, it was who knows what they called it. Right. But it was a private message on Facebook, and you told me that you had received Jesus as your Savior. Right. So now this I've never asked you, but and not that I not that this is important, but I have been a little bit curious. So what was it that made you think, because that broke silence maybe a decade between us, what was it that made you think to contact me and tell me that? I'm curious.
Well, I knew people that were Christians, and I think since I was a new Christian, I wanted people in my circle of friends that were Christians that could say, "Hey, this is what you need to, get into a Bible. Read this Bible chapter." Even still to this day, I mean, there's a difference between reading the Bible and studying the Bible.
Right.
For as long as I've been a Christian, I'm still in the reading the Bible part and trying to learn the study part of it. So like I said, I knew a couple of people that were Christian, and I was kind of, being a rookie Christian, looking for people that I knew for guidance, kind of, Christian mentors, if you will. I mean, there was people at Harvest Bible. I took a new Christian course up there, but I wanted people, in my hometown that I contact on Facebook or text or things like that, kind of point me in the right direction.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, and that's what it's all about. So if somebody asked you today, like, what do you feel like happened when it was your pastor there at the church that had, invited you in and quoted the Romans 10:9 thing to you and all that?
Right.
Like, how would you describe today if you said, I became a Christian? What do you feel like that means to do that?
I think what happened, we ended up getting a clear understanding what was going on with Valerie health-wise. I think it was like a couple of years before we really knew what was going on. And, knowing God is the great, healer and protector and things like that, we finally, he kind of pointed us in the way, go see this doctor. This doctor has the answer for you. So, yeah, I think that's, we got more clarity, as far as Valerie's health.
Now I think about you, and were you going to say anything else? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, but I got to thinking, just now that, we got a clear understanding. Then thinking about what happened to me recently, it's almost kind of like the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the direction I wanted to go in. So
okay,
this was a number of many years ago when this took place, and you, like you said, you're seeing God as healer, and maybe there's a part of you, maybe not, but I'm just if it was me, I would be thinking, well, if it's not going to hurt me to get closer to God as we're praying for my wife to get better,
right?
And then she, in the big picture sense, doesn't get better, and she passes away.
Passed away in September 2015, and combination of things. There's not really one thing I can really pin it on. But for the longest time, obviously, I was mad at God, as anybody that would be in that situation. The one thing I always hated hearing was Valerie's in a better place. And I would think to myself, what's in a better place than being with her husband? But then I had a friend of mine tell me, you know what? When people say that, it's true, because when Valerie went to heaven, whatever pain, because Valerie never complained about being in pain. She never said, why me, or anything like that. So then when I got to thinking about when she went to heaven, because she gave her life to Christ about a year before she passed away, and we ended up getting baptized together, she had no more pain. God made her, God made her whole. No more pain, no more whatever it was she had here on earth. And that kind of but I can remember, going on drives to my job, which was an hour away, and I would just scream at God, using language that wouldn't be appropriate in a setting like this. But yeah, I mean, I had, I mean, people that were driving by me must have thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just silent to myself. It was, I was mad, and I was screaming at God. Why did you do this to me?
Well, and I think anybody that might be watching, listening right now that has lost someone, whether it's suddenly a result of an extended illness or whether, regardless, I mean, I think they're hearing you there.
Yeah.
Now, what I think is incredible is here we are now, almost 6 years later, and we're sitting here still talking about faith in Jesus, and we're talking about belief. And it's not as if, because people do, hey, I trusted you, and then here my wife has been lost. We're out. Goodbye. I never want to think of you again. And that happens all the time. And yet, so what is it that has caused you to persevere? I'm curious.
Well, I think the one thing is Valerie had been gone about, I would say probably about 9 months, and they always tell you when you grieve not to make any major decisions for a year, especially dating if you've lost a spouse. About 9 months, I kind of tested the waters, went on a few dates, and ended up being crazy people, and I call it my carnival of crazy. Well, on April 1st, 2017, I met a woman by the name of Debbie Smith, or I started talking to her on the dating app Plenty of Fish. Next day, I met her. We've been together for 4 years. So it was like that darkness that I had, just, I was seeing light for the first time in like 9 months, or probably even longer than that because of everything I went through with Valerie. And I believe to this day that God had a plan for me, and I think him and Valerie and kind of had a hand in that happening. And just as an aside, I found out that Debbie was a widow as well. So, the one thing I tell people is that if you lose a spouse, the only person, and I hope nobody takes offense to this, but if you lose a spouse, the only person that will understand what you're going through is another person that's lost a spouse. That's what I've learned. And even to this day, I'll mention something that Valerie did, and she'll mention something that her spouse did, and it's not one of those things, oh well, we can't talk about them. We encourage each other to talk about them because we've been through what it's like losing a spouse. So I think that was the first thing that got me towards the being more happy. I mean, believe me, it was the first few months Debbie and I were together. It wasn't easy. I mean, there was a chance that we probably weren't going to make it. You would probably be surprised to find this out, but I have a temper. And Debbie will attest to that. And I just had to learn, I had to learn to pick my battles. And I think that's really, and like I said, we've been together for 4 years. And then I think the second thing was what happened to me in January.
Well, yeah, before you get into that, I was just going to say, if I'm the ruler of the world, which I'm not, I mean, I feel like, you lose a spouse, anybody, loses a spouse, I feel like they can just stake their claim and they say, okay, I've gone through hard times. I don't need more hardship in my life. I think I've learned what I need to learn, especially if I'm able to continue with God. After that, okay, I think I've endured my share of hardship in your life, and yet that was not your case. So fill us in on what happened earlier this year.
Well, when I was 10 years old, I was diagnosed with a mild case of epilepsy. Combination of I was hit in the head with an aluminum bat, which caused a mild fracture in my skull, a hairline fracture, and I had like a little growth spurt between 4th and 5th grade. Doctor said I would eventually grow out of it. I only had the petit mal seizures, the spacing out and things like that. I only had one grand mal seizure. That was when I was in high school. I turned 18. They do an EEG, which is a brain scan, and they found two things. Number one, I had a brain, and number two, I had no epileptic waves in my brain. Flash forward 40 some years.
Now, hold on. Was that a joke when you said that they did a scan and they found out that you had a brain? Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize for not laughing. I was very engrossed in you.
No, that's okay.
You said it so deadpan. I just was.
Fast forward 40 some years, August of 2020, I'm diagnosed with COVID. Now, of course, they don't really know a whole lot about COVID. And if you don't present symptoms in 10 days of quarantine, they take you out of it. On the 9th day, I had a grand mal seizure, which I hadn't had in 40 years. Since then, I've had 5 grand mal seizures. The worst one came January 25th. I can remember having I was having the seizure. Debbie happened to come home from work and called 911. I remember Debbie say, "Let me get out of the way so you guys can do your job." The paramedics come in and, take me out to the ambulance. I only remember going out to the ambulance because it was cold. It was January. They loaded me into the ambulance, shut the door. That's the last thing I remember. According to what I was told, I was in 3 hospitals, Streator, Pontiac, and Peoria. They put a breathing tube in me in Peoria, and I was on life support for 6 days. And from what I've been told, if you're on a ventilator for 6 days, chances are you're not coming back. I never saw God, never saw Jesus, never saw heaven, never saw, hell or Satan or anything like that. I just would have weird, like I was at the hospital, but my bed was out in the hallway. Just weird things like that. When I come to, another thing, I swore up and down that somebody stole my phone and I wear a Fitbit. Don't know if this was just me in my state or if it was really. And when I came to, my mom had called Debbie and she had my phone in Streator and my Fitbit. When I came to, I'm thinking, okay, cool. I'm at a hospital. I can watch the Super Bowl this weekend and everything's good. My mom says to me, "Jamie, it's February 1st. The Super Bowl's not until the next weekend." So I was out for 6 days. And I firmly believe God could have just said, "You know what, Jamie, you've been through so much in your life with Valerie passing away and everything that's going on. You know what? Here's your reward. I'm taking you to heaven." But for whatever reason, he didn't do that. And also having a great team of neurologists. I had like 3 or 4 neurologists looking at me and saying, but I think that a combination of God, I really know now that he does have a plan for me. And I think, talking about it on your show, talking about grief, and this isn't a criticism of the church. And I heard earlier that you're having that grief thing on the 15th of May, which I think is great because, and like I said, this isn't a criticism of the church, but I don't think enough is done speaking about grief. And I honestly would like to be part of that. And speaking about, if there's one person in your audience that's hearing this, that is thinking to yourself, I've been thinking about having a relationship with God, surrendering my life to Christ, but I just don't know if God's going to be there. And, I'm not a pastor by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm here to tell you right now, God will be there for you. God loves you, no matter how bad you think your life has been or sin you've committed. God loves you and he wants a relationship with you.
Man, that's a great way to categorize that. I think what you're saying is correct. I think that the more the church, and I'm not talking about your church or my church, I'm talking about Christian churches, people who say, "I am a disciple of Jesus. We do this together in community," whatever you want to call a church. I think that I think more needs to be done. I would agree with that entirely. I lost my dad who used to wear this hat.
Right. And I've lost my dad, in a span of about 2 years. I lost my sister, I lost my grandmother, I lost Valerie, and I lost my dad about 7 months after Valerie passed away. And the only thing I really found were grief, either at a hospital or there's, something called grief share that I don't think a lot of people know about. I went through that twice. But if there's any, I'm, not to toot my own horn, but I'm very technically savvy. If there's a group out there that wants to, because you got these small groups, they want to do something on Zoom or anything to talk about grief. I can't drive for the next till July because once you have a seizure, you can't drive for 6 months. So
you're hanging out.
Yeah, so I'm hanging out. I'm looking for things to do. So if there's a small group or anything like that that wants to do a Zoom thing about, God being there for you, or grief. I mean, I think that's what the plan, because if you haven't noticed, I've got a gift to be able to talk.
No, I hadn't.
Yeah, so I really, really would like to do that, and help whoever I can, because like I
Yeah.
said, that's what I think. I think the gift God has given me is being able to talk about stuff like this, and this is just stuff that's rolling. I don't have any notes in for, I'm just rolling this off the top of my head. So,
well, I'll tell you what. If you're watching this right now and you feel like you could, benefit from something like that, both in the giving and the receiving, I mean, post a comment. We'll monitor the comments on this video and get you in touch with Jamie because, it doesn't take much. I mean, some people are trained and skilled in this area, and others just say, "Well, I'd like to share," and giving somebody the opportunity to share what's on their heart. And you don't even necessarily have to comment on what they say. Just let them say what they want to say. If they have questions they want to ask or whatever it might be. That was one of the reasons that I felt compelled to put on this grief seminar that is happening at WBGL on May 15th, like you said, is because I agree that we as people in churches should do more for grief. And, it's very easy to just want to either act like it doesn't exist,
right.
Death doesn't exist, or like to just sweep it under the rug and kind of make our little surface level comments while we're in passing at church or whatever. But also, I mean, I read a statistic from the WebMD just the other day that said 57% of people have lost someone close to them within the last 3 years. And like that even sounded even maybe a little bit low to me, but like they're trying to say that, once you're in grief, it's not like a thing that you just shake off. And, to some degree, it never goes away. And so if we're all dealing with this kind of chronic issue of, I mean, I'm thinking of people that I've lost 5 years ago or 15 years ago that I still miss today and will shed a tear when they come to mind or I see a photo of them or whatever. Obviously, there's something in our soul that we can communicate about and maybe make each other better, right?
Right. And also, one thing I've noticed, I'm active on social media, and there's Facebook groups for people that have lost a spouse that you can get in communication with people that are in the same situation. I'm sure there's Facebook groups for people that have lost a parent, people that have lost a child, which I could never, I could never imagine being in that situation. I mean, it's bad enough losing a spouse, but I could never imagine losing a child.
Right. Yeah, I hear you right there. So I'll tell you what, get in touch with us if that appeals to you in some way. But we got to wrap things up as we head toward the 9:30 hour here, at least when we're recording this on a Thursday. But is there anything else you would like to say before we close out here, bro?
Not that I can think of. I mean, the Cubs are struggling, and tell fans, don't jump off the ledge yet. I mean, it's still, yeah, there you go. It's still early.
Who am
I? Major props to Carlos Rondon yesterday for throwing a no-hitter. NFL draft is coming up for the Bears, and I need to start a podcast, but my problem is I'm way too opinionated.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've noticed that, and what I would do if I were you is check this platform out that we're on. It's called StreamYard.
Yeah.
I will say it's a very easy thing to use if you want to have these sort of face-to-face conversations. But before we truly wrap up with seconds remaining, would you please lay one on me? I'm Jamie Newell, WCMY Sports.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I'm Jamie Newell, WCMY Sports. And you know what? Just real quick, I really miss being in radio. I love doing chats like this because I think the farther away that I am from it, the more I miss it.
Well, I completely understand. I feel that way even sometimes if I go on a 2-week vacation. Number one, you come back, you're lucky to have a job. And
Must
number
be
two,
nice.
you want to get back in. Must be nice.